r/Askreddit by Reddit and chill. You have 30 minutes to hide a USB drive in your house. Your house will then be raided by police, detectives and some FBI agents all searching for the USB. Where do you hide it so that it won't be found? Put it inside a hot dog and give it to my dog. He never chews anything and just gulps it down. The next time he takes a dump, I retrieve it. Time's up. Post's 2 hours old, so OP. Did they find it? The fact that they haven't answered speaks volumes. I think we need to check the ARP's hard drive. And everyone else's apparently. Damn. What do you guys have on your USB drives? All mine are old school assignments I'll never look at again but still have just in case. Heat up the bottom of one of my jar candles until I can slip the wax out. I've done it before. Hollow out a space in it. Put it in. And put the whole thing back in the jar. I've done it before. In the handle on my oven door, the screw loosened and one side fell down. When I went to fix it, I noticed it was hollow. You could probably fit 15 in there. Was thinking between the glass of the oven door. I recently discovered I can access that space between the glass. If I don't need easy access to it when they leave, I'll remove a wall outlet and push it through a hole on the back of the electric box into the wall cavity. Impossible to find without ripping out all the drywall since there will be no evidence that it was put in there once I put the outlet back in. Do just this and the sniffer dog would have it in 10 minutes. Go one further, the police triumphantly find the chip, but continue searching from due diligence. The dog finds other chips, and again alerts officers to the original hide. Nothing inside. Extreme diligence runs the void finder and metal detector just in case. No holes. No metal save the screws holding perfectly normal drywall. Even careful measuring of the hide returns normal widths on everything. Diligence complete. Officers take the key back to the lab and find it heavily encrypted. Their office nerds are confident it can be cracked in a few months. May a year? They get to work. Office nerds then have an amazing rate of suicide over the next few years because the encryption is based on Depeche Mode music and they get depressed to go on. The one Depeche Mode fan in the group succeeds but finds a second layer of encryption based on smooth jazz. PD has to hire a new group of lab nerds, thus never finding out the chip is merely a decoy. The actual chip is still in the carefully searched wall, behind the outlet box, covered by a normal looking 2.5 layers of drywall with cut-off screw heads over the chip. If somehow the officers do find it, there is a single unencrypted file with a nude photo of myself. Thus anyone foolish enough to even look at it is permanently struck blind. I'm gonna wrap it in some plastic, then down the pipe it goes. Or up the pipe. Glued to the underside of my wheelie bin handle. There's a space right under it which should be enough for a USB drive. If they flip it over to rummage through the trash, then they'll be holding it with their hand. Either that or under the insulation inside my attic. I like the idea of them having it in their hand and not knowing it. I can only imagine that right now somewhere in the world there is a group of FBI agents raiding a house. Sweating. Not being able to find a specific USB. Their boss is on their ass. Their last hope is to consult the all-knowing members of the r/Askreddit community. So we are out of options. What do we do? Lieutenant. Yes sir? Consult the hive. Sir, the hive mind is erratic and regularly confused by its own thoughts. To catch a maniac, you have to think like a maniac. Now are you a maniac, son? No sir. Consult the hive. And may God have mercy on our souls. Inside the notch where my basketball rim backboard connects to the garage, I remember thinking, wow, I could hide something here when I put up the backboard. Nice try. Come back with a warrant. Plays Cherry Pie by Warrant while searching house. Take out floating rubber ball thingy from toilet tank. Cut a slit in the bottom of the floating rubber ball thingy and shove it inside of that. Super glue the slit shut. And replace it. Duckman. That's some high level thinking. Pull the latch plate off my door frame. Chisel a slightly deeper hole. Pop then USB in there and replace the plate. Who would ever think to look there? What if the FBI opens your door using the shotgun method? Bury it in the insulation in the attic. It would take days to sift through it all to find a USB drive. The bonus would be that they'd find my tape measure that I lost a few years ago. Well, that gives me enough time to pop the circuit board out of the casing and just randomly solder it to a nondescript part of another piece of electronics in my house. I can then burn the casing. My CDT teacher would be so proud. Unless they're really good at their job, they're not finding it. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Etc. For my very silly plan. I think this one might be the best answer, as no other answer addresses dogs trained to sniff out things like SD and USB drives. I'm not kidding. They bring them in on child porn cases where the evidence is often on a drive hidden away from the computer. Having the USB circuit board look like a piece of electronics on a random device. Computer's gonna get confiscated. Might work, as the device might trigger the dog, but the trainer think it is supposed to have a memory board. They find the one that is supposed to be there but don't find the hidden one. In the broken porcelain on my sink, then patch it with instant noodles. Give it to my 4 years old and say, don't lose this. Bud. Poof, that thing is gone for at least a year. This made me think of just putting it in a Nerf gun and shooting it in an empty room. Those darts just disappear. My yard. Nobody goes in there and comes back alive. Your yard is peppered with landmines too. My brother died last year, and substance abuse played a large part in his passing. He had a very successful business that he sold, so he was quite wealthy. At one point, he decided it was a great time to explore leveraging his position to buy Bitcoin. He borrowed $500,000 in December of 18 and bought Bitcoin. But he became paranoid when he started using Xanax heavily. He hid $25K in his house when he was wasted and couldn't remember where. He told his housekeeper he'd give her $5K if she found it. She did. At the bottom of a box of Ziploc baggies. His final act of paranoia was to place all of his Bitcoin on an encrypted cold storage USB drive that he hid in the house. Several encrypted drives were found in the house, but nobody knows the password. He had a synchronized encrypted Apple Notes password file on his Apple devices, but nobody knows the password to that. So there is $1 million plus sitting on a USB drive, but no way to get at it. You might be able to get some of his devices unlocked by submitting a death certificate and proof of his estate to Apple. If he was using iCloud with an Apple ID, they may do it, but it's going to be a fairly hefty process. I'll tape it to the back of an LSE of a fan and turn the fan on. And on the USB was stored the last copy of You Spin Me Round by Dead or Alive. OP is a cop on the scene serving a warrant trying to find a USB stick they are certain is on site. Not so loud. I feel like swallowing it is too obvious. I'd make a decoy flash drive with a Bitcoin account password on it with a couple $100 in it. Then I'd put in a Tor browser link and some pictures of weed or something. I'd hide that flash drive without a case inside my Xbox, masquerading as part of the hardware. Then get the real USB and glue it to the underside of a fin on my outside AC unit. I'm in Florida, so the AC runs about 24/7. Hopefully they will find the decoy in the Xbox before they tear apart my AC system. Anyone that's seen Dexter knows to look at the AC. Rules aren't super clear. I'd dismantle the drive and hide its parts in a few random locations. I'll say everything is allowed as long as the data can still be retrieved if enough of the drive is found. I'm homeless. There's no house for them to raid. Checkmate. You can hide it everywhere in the streets. I've got a story about this. You see, my brother's a big duck off nonce, and one time he got caught by some pedo hunters. You know, the people online that pretend to be 7 years old. Well, they told the police, and so a couple of weeks later they came to the house with an arrest warrant and a search warrant for the premises. They were looking for USB drives and SD cards, and they took all the computers and such in the house. Anyway, so what they do when they're searching your house is first they search you, so they do the standard airport pat down and empty your pockets. Then they take you round the house and go through everything, and you have to watch. For like legal reasons. But they really do go through everything. These people were flicking through books and opening DVD cases. Just really going through everything. Anyway, they get up to my bedroom and I'm having to watch these big ducking troopers going through all my stuff. One of them was an old bald guy, properly Glasgow butch, and he was pretty nice for a man that looked like a potato. But he was searching my room and reached under my bed, and I swear to God the first thing he took out was my fleshlight. He takes it out and goes, "What's this, big man?" I said, "It's a fleshlight." Which sounds like a bad idea, but you're not going to lie to the police. But he goes, "A what?" "A fleshlight." "What's a fleshlight?" "It's a silicone vagina in a tube." So he kind of scoffs, then twists the top off the thing and sees this fake vagina looking back at him. He looks at me. The fleshlight. Me. The fleshlight, and then sighs and says, "I'm going to have to search this." So takes his fingers and puts them into the fleshlight and starts feeling around in there. Finds nothing. Takes his fingers out. Screws the top back on. Then puts it on my desk, turns to me and says, "I'll just leave that there for you, big man." Climb onto the roof. About midway up the roof. Lift an asphalt shingle and slide the USB stick in as far as I can. Press the shingle back down and then get off the roof and store the ladder. Good luck finding my data now. Then the police could ask people in neighboring houses if they saw you doing anything weird, and I would say climbing all over your roof definitely qualifies as suspicious behavior. Put it in the sink with all the dirty dishes. Seems like everything that gets put in the sink instantly turns invisible to everyone but me. Under the dead body in the freezer. Going by a lot of the responses I've seen, you'd be better off putting it inside the dead body's anus. Address it to yourself and drop it through the neighbor's mail slot. Make sure it's a neighbor that works late. They won't find it because it's not there. And then hopefully your neighbor will notice that they got your mail and return it. Standard posting it to yourself would also work pretty well. Gives you a couple days to breathe. My other thought was climbing high in my tree and gluing it to a branch. Because which officer is so committed that they're checking the top branches of trees? Ain't no tree climbing sniffer dogs either. Who the duck even hides USBs in trees? Right? Take the batteries out of your mum's dildo and put it where the batteries were. What if the cop wants to use it? You forgot to add. Asking for a friend. Yeah, and OP, tell your friend to play this on loop when they enter. Also have a harmonica at hand. The key word here is hide. This implies that I want it back. Not lost forever. Remove the knob from a door and drop the USB drive inside the door. In my house I could toss it in my scrap electronics room. Let it get lost among the Ataris. Apple S. Mac SEs. Data cables from the early 70s. The stack of 8086 motherboards. Etc. Take other USB drives and hide them around. One in the couch cushions. One under the carpet. One with a string tied to it and drop down a vent. Insert one rectally. And on like that. Let them find the fake ones. Attach it to a drone and land the drone somewhere else entirely. Then watch in horror as the drone battery starts to die and it starts returning home and bringing the drive right to the cops. LMAO. Copy onto a microSD card. Shove the card into a functional USB stick enclosure. Even if they find it, the data won't show if you plug it in. Also hide a bunch of USB everywhere. Preferably with large chunks of encrypted data that would show up as random bits. They force you to give them the key in court and boom. Risk Astley will never give you up. I put it in a sock and then put the sock in the dryer. I turn the dryer on and when it's done, bam, nobody will ever find the sock, therefore the hard drive ever again. My conspiracy theory is that the FBI has been stealing socks out of dryers for decades on the chance that people were hiding stuff in them. There's a hole in the wall behind my TV to run hidden cables to the soundbar below it. I'd push it into that hole. And it would fall to the bottom of the wall where there's no way to access it. But I'd know exactly where it was. And could retrieve it in seconds by knocking a hole in the wall at floor level. My house is an old Victorian with lath and plaster walls. When I do this, things can end up anywhere. In ceilings. All the way in the basement. In the walls on a lower floor etc. I'd leave it out in front of my sew. She will always tidy away my stuff and I'll never be able to find it. Only the other day I was working on something. Left the room for 5 minutes and poof, everything was gone and in several locations including Narnia. Do you have a magic laundry basket too? Hide it in butt of one of the sex slaves I have locked up in the basement. They'll be thrown off the trail once they find my dungeon. My secret hiding spot is worth so much more than internet points. Yup. They'll never find it. I'll put it in a safe place with my keys. Can never find the bastard things when I want them, so it should be fine. Ducking like and subscribe.